We remind our listeners that Amateur Radio Newsline is an all-volunteer, non-profit organization that incurs expenses for its continued operation. If you wish to support us, please visit our website at arnewsline.org and know that we appreciate you all. We also remind our listeners that if you like our newscast, please leave us a 5-star rating wherever you subscribe to us. For now, with Karen Eve Murray, KD2GUT, at the news desk in New York, and our news team worldwide, I'm Neil Rapp, WB9VPG in Union, Kentucky, saying 7-3, and as always, we thank you for listening. Amateur Radio Newsline is copyright 2022, all rights reserved.
Thank you very much for the latest information from the ham radio world by the ARN Newsline, guys, and welcome back to Shortwave Radio. Saying hello wherever you are. Welcome back to Shortwave Radio. All the way from Germany on 3975 and 6 months to go. Kicking off with the Hoosiers.
Jan, guten Abend auch zu dir aus dem großen weißen Haus. Immer noch da, du solltest doch raus sein. Schön, dass ihr alle da seid. Schönen guten Abend hier von Shortwave Radio.
Thanks very much, Rod from Birmingham. Big hello to you from our side. This is Shortwave Radio. As I said before, in German language, as the last chance to get the wonderful QSL cards, we need return voltage to be transferred to our bank account or via PayPal to our support group. How it works, find it out on the website shortwaveradio.de as we are finishing our QSL service. End of this Shortwave Radio, your shout out, go on the website and a voice message right here, right now, all the way from Germany, 3975 and 6160, Shortwave Radio.
Please donate to the project. Please visit our website at shortwaveradio.de/donate. That's shortwaveradio.de/donate. Remember, shortwave radio broadcasting is not for free. Thanks for your support from Shortwave Gold. This is Shortwave Radio. Non-stop music, 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 music.
Shortwave Gold, I love you.
Year by Year with Chris Easer, 1979.
That's all from the Amateur Radio Newsline. We remind our listeners that Amateur Radio Newsline is an all-volunteer, non-profit organization that incurs expenses for continued operation. If you wish to support us, please visit our website at arnewsline.org and know that we appreciate you all.
www.rnw.nl. The manufacturer, AKB, can also be contacted by fax. The number is 44 for the UK and 1438 357 591. That's 44 for the UK, then 1438 357 591.
Media Network's News Review.
Wunderbar, es ist Primetime, 20:18 Uhr ihr hört Shortwave Radio 3975 6160. Musikwünsche, die sofort erfüllt werden. Ladies, die Ärzte als nächstes und das darfst du.
Transmitters located in Germany. This is Shortwave Radio.
Dann wollen wir mal. 04917695225353 für eure Musikwünsche. E-Mail studio@shortwaveradio.de. Buonasera ragazzi, trasmettiamo live in questo momento.
This is a live transmission from Shortwave Radio. Shortwave Radio.
Hold it, guys. Hold it.
What's going on?
It's time for Media Network.
Cool.
Media Network. Give me the Sony.
Indeed it is. Well, Deanna and I are back on any old wireless you happen to be listening to, and we find a bit of a mixed bag this week. A little way into the program, we attend for the new budget with communications receiver.
And we have some traditional radio stuff as well.
But we start with something on the lighted board.
If you like the show, write to us. If you don't like the show, my address will follow at the end of the program. This is your announcement.
Here on Radio Netherlands, we tend to specialize in documentaries, and we've done quite a few as part of Media Network. You may remember that last year we invited Jelle Boonstra and Benno Rosen onto the program. These two Dutch guys are the founding members of the Society of Radio Jingles and Themes. This is a non-profit organization dedicated to the preservation of jingles from around the world.
Well, those two have been busy because together with a band of enthusiasts and the English broadcaster Keith Hughes, they've put a 65-minute English language documentary together called The History of Offshore Jingles. This production turns out to be a real festival of jingles, and the enthusiasm just oozes out of the loudspeakers. Here's a sample of what they've done.
This is part one of the history of the offshore radio jingle.
No matter if you're in it, we got a whole new world waiting on your radio.
Commercial station on the high seas, just outside the reach of European broadcast laws. The first such station was Radio Mercur in Scandinavia. After 25 years, even Radio Luxembourg rarely used jingles. As a station ID, they had a gong. For all that's worthwhile, your radio dial is on Radio Luxembourg. Things rather changed when radio innovator and KLIF boss Gordon McClendon took a business holiday in Sweden. He met Jack S. Koschak, a shrewd businessman, and they were on exactly the same frequency. McClendon was stunned when he heard how boring Swedish radio was. Jack Koschak told him that transistors on the summer beach were all switched off after the daily Swedish hour of popular music was over.
The CD looks at how fans' jingles were used by the larger offshore stations, broadcasting for international waters in the North Sea. In that jingle, quickly copied the idea from others.
America and Luxembourg were green with envy when hearing the slick fans jingles on the offshore stations. They decided to come up with their own material. Radio America hired special singers
and orchestra leader Ernst Wright to record their own jingles in 1965. The first jingles to be made in Holland. Radio Luxembourg finally threw away the gong and followed a year later with the special Green or Go package. Professional jingles, but with a very English flair.
Green, let's go! Go 208.
Like Radio 1 was based on the success of Radio London, the new BBC Radio 2 was modelled after the successful MOR format of Radio 390 and Britain Radio. They even ordered the complete smart set.
You're still listening to Radio Netherlands. That's just a sample of what we think is a superb piece of production there. If you want to explain the fascination of radio to someone who's not quite so enthusiastic, well, this is a pretty good start. The CD cover says it's part 1, so maybe there'll be more at a later stage. The price of the compact disc, including postage, has been set at $16 US, £12 sterling, or 30 German marks. What equivalent in your own currency?
More information from the Society of Radio Jingles and Themes, Babelsalam 21B, Babelsalam spelled as B-A-B-E-L-S-E-L-A-N, 21B, postal code 4835 GT in Breda, B-R-E-D-A, Breda, in the Netherlands. Or there are more details on their website, including lots of links to other collectors. The web address is www.jingle.wise.nl, www.jingle.wise.nl.
Or you can check the details on our own website. Now, time for our own jingle from the past, a Media Network special.
Consumer investigation.
Programs, we've explained that the top end of the shortwave receiver market has slowed in the last 12 months. Sets costing over $1,000 have been particularly hit, partly because many of the cheaper portable receivers have introduced a lot of new features which attract more general users, especially those experimenting with international radio listening for the first time.
In Britain, one manufacturer has taken a different approach. AKD, a company based in Stevenage in Hertfordshire, has come on the market with what they call the Target HF-free communications receiver, priced at £160 sterling, including VAT. Bearing in mind that entry-level communications receivers, such as the low HF-150, cost £419 in its basic version in the UK, or what about the Yaesu FRG-100 for around £470? Well, the AKD is certainly very much cheaper. Now that the units are in production, we've been testing one over the last 8 weeks, doing quite a bit of both practical listening as well as the usual measuring schemes. Today we've come up to the laboratory to discuss the results.
And the first thing that strikes you as you unpack the radio is that it's extremely compact. That's because the 12-volt power supply is not inside the set. It comes as a brick-style power pack which you plug into the wall. You plug the jack into the back of the radio, connect an external antenna, and the radio is ready to perform.
The front panel is extremely simple. There's a large liquid crystal display showing the frequency, 4 little push buttons, 2 rotary controls, one marked volume, the other marked clarifier, and a large tuning knob. In fact, the tuning system is extremely simple and handy to operate. And that tuning knob has a weight inside, so it has a nice feel to it as well. The coverage is from 30 kilohertz up to 30 megahertz in 1 kilohertz steps. If you turn the knob slowly, then you move in 1 kilohertz steps. If you turn it slightly faster, then as you can see, the steps get progressively larger, 10, 100, or even 1000 kilohertz at a time. So if you need to, you can hop from one end of the band to the other in a very short time. 1 kilohertz steps is fine for most broadcast applications, but if you can use the set for listening to utility stations, then this clarifier control allows you to tune finer than 1 kilohertz. So these slight changes in frequency are not reflected on the liquid crystal display. The radio is dual conversion. The first intermediate frequency is at 45 megahertz, the second at 455 kilohertz.
You can use the set for listening to broadcast stations in AM or switch the mode to either USB or LSB. You need that if you want to monitor traffic on the amateur radio band. The HF3 has just one memory channel, which also remembers the mode. When you switch the set on, this is the channel that is recalled. If you tune around a bit, you can go back to this channel again by pressing the recall button. So that's it.
We tested a version which has a built-in board to allow you to connect up a home computer for decoding weather facsimile signals. That's quite neat, but it does mean that on this version you have to forfeit the output to a pair of headphones. It is present on the standard version. That's something you can live with. So we were surprised that in an effort to keep the price down, AKB has used an ordinary hi-fi phono cinch plug for an aerial socket. You can find this type of plug on the back of audio equipment, but not on radio receivers. And we don't understand why they didn't use a conventional SO239 socket, which is much more rugged and stronger. Ready-made antennas come with such a plug that matches, so it's a shame that you have to solder on a phono plug instead. This is mechanically probably the weakest part of the receiver, and within a few days of use, it will work loose on our particular test example.
AKB does supply a length of 10 meters of wire with a phono plug already soldered onto one end. But this is not the best solution for shortwave listening. If you put the antenna up inside the average house, it's almost guaranteed to pick up a lot of unwanted noise from apparatus inside the house, such as fluorescent lights, thermostats, computers, and TVs. We use an external antenna with a magnetic balun mounted 5 meters away from the building with a coaxial cable feeding the signal into the shack. The background noise was considerably quieter this way.
Well constructed. If you look inside the HF3, you'll find it magically laid out and nothing else. The PR synthesizer is sheared up inside a separate box to keep the noise away from the sensitive input circuitry. Turn out to some of it and see the specifications, starting with sensitivity across the range between 30 and 30,000 kilohertz. We're measuring the 0.10 dB signal to noise ratio and 60% modulation, which in other words is equivalent to an AM station that's Class B eligible. Around 100 kilohertz, the sensitivity is 2.5 microvolts. Above 15 megahertz, the sensitivity drops. So you need between 3.5 to 4.5 microvolts to get the phone level of intelligent network. In the single sideband modes, the receiver is roughly 3 times more sensitive, which is to be expected.
Those figures for sensitivity are only fair, but remember that below 10 megahertz, a receiver doesn't have to be too sensitive. In this region, the antenna will provide more than sufficient signal to drive the radio. Above 15 megahertz, the fair sensitivity of the set is noticeable, especially if you live in low signal strength areas like the west coast of North America or in the Pacific.
The designers of the HF3 have done this to reduce the problems of overloading. Remember that a huge number of signals are presented in the front of the receiver, and the task of any radio is to pick out the wanted signal and reject the rest. The more sensitive you make the radio, the more you have to invest in circuitry to ensure that strong signals don't overload the front end. Once this happens, weak signals disappear into the background, suppressed by local powerhouse broadcasters using 500 kilowatts or more.
There is a two-position attenuator on the back of the radio. If you switch it on, signals are attenuated by a factor of 4, in other words by 12 dB. That's quite coarse, and operation is complicated by the fact that the attenuator is on the back of the radio. If you can pick up a fine step attenuator at a ham radio store, you'll find that being able to try something like 6, 12 or 18 dB of attenuation is quite handy. In practice, you're trying to find the balance between letting too little signal into the receiver and too much.
The signal strength meter is in the form of a bar graph on the liquid crystal display. And in fact, it's only a rough guide to signal strength. There are 10 segments, one of which is always lit. We found it was easier to use your ears than use this particular tuning meter as a guide.
The receiver has 2 bandwidth filters installed. For AM broadcast use, the best results are obtained with the 6 kHz filter, and for SSB and facsimile, a 3.8 kHz filter is installed. But you cannot use this for the AM mode. The selectivity of both filters turns out to be quite good, especially for a set of this price category.
But this is contrasted by the limited dynamic range of the set. Signals stronger than 50 dB in the desired signal start to overload the set. So in practical terms, the dynamic range of the HF3 is only 55 decibels, 72 decibels in single sideband. What does that mean? It means that any reasonable antenna is capable of providing sufficient signal to overload the radio, especially here in Europe, after dark, on bands below 10 megahertz. In AM, we measured a third-order intercept point of around -9 dBm. That's about the same sort of results we measured on the Kenwood R600 10 years ago.
AKD has put a decent audio amplifier inside the HF3. It sounds quite pleasant. It delivers half a watt RMS into a loudspeaker with less than 1% distortion, which is more than sufficient for listening purposes. Remember that only the standard model has an output for headphones.
If you plan to use the set for unattended monitoring, try to pick a place with fairly constant temperature, what the media network offers on a summer's day, I can assure you. We found our example wandered about plus or minus 30 hertz during listening periods of a few hours. That's not a problem with AM broadcast reception, but it's a bit more critical for telex reception.
In conclusion, we did quite a bit of listening with this receiver. During the day, using a good 15-meter-long external antenna, we found the set pleasant to use. It was great for general broadcast reception and was able to decipher at least some of the stronger amateur radio transmissions on 40 and 20 meters. In the evening, though, listening around 14 megahertz, we had severe problems with broadcast interference from 15 and 11 megahertz. Attenuation helped a bit, but not that much.
The bottom line is that this set is a great entry-level receiver for the shortwave broadcast listener. You get what you pay for. If you pay 3 times the price for a communications receiver, you will get noticeably better results. Remember too that some of the portable sets, like the branded Packet 700, will be similar to have better radio performance and will have FM reception and more memory.
On the other hand, the HF3 from AKG in the UK is easier to tune, is well built, and sounds better than many portables. It fulfills a need in the European marketplace.
The price in the UK, once again, is £160. Outside Britain, the set is slightly more expensive, costing around 550 guilders here in the Netherlands. That's, of course, because of import duty and transportation costs. A printed version of this review is now up in the rural radio section of Radio Netherlands' website. Look for us at www.rnw.nl. Manufacturer, AKD, can also be contacted by fax. The number is 44 for the UK, then 1438 357 591. That's 44 for the UK, then 1438 357 591.
Media Network's News Review.
Canada station hasn't yet come on the air, but by the end of the month it could sound like this.
நேரம் சரியாக அதிகாலை 3:40 நீங்கள் கேட்டுக்கொண்டிருப்பது அஸ்ட்ரா சேட்டலைட் வழியாக ஐரோப்பா முழுவதும் வந்து கொண்டிருக்கும் IBC தமிழ் வானொலி.
on the south side of the Thames in London, a new station is preparing to come on the air. We're waiting for this to be heard on satellite, whilst in South Africa the station will shortly be heard on Shortwave. The International Broadcasting Corporation has rented space from the headquarters of the World Radio Network. To find out more details, Media Network comes to our studios and talks to the managing director of the broadcast team, Maran Essex. He says the station offers channel speakers.
We don't have a radio here in UK or Europe to communicate with all the Tamils living here. There are quite a lot of Tamils spread out here as refugees, and most of them are monolingual. Most of the housewives living in Germany or France, they do not know French or English. So they are virtually prisoners in their own houses. So we need to serve them, and not only the housewives, the old age people as well. Because there's a clash of cultural interests.
So the major target is Tamil speakers living in Europe?
That's right, yes.
And what sort of programs are you going to make for them?
It's mostly cultural and educational and information, and at the same time entertainment as well. Cultural in the sense religion. It is satellite service because we can't do that on the radio here. Radio authority will not give us permission to do that on radio, and it's very expensive to go on satellite, but still we are going to do that.
So it's 24 hours a day. It's on Astro Transponder 18. And the set area is 7.56 megahertz. And as well as broadcasting to Europe, which you mentioned, the idea is also to get programs back to South Asia.
South Asia, yes, shortly, because the news provided to Sri Lanka and India. That's right, yes. We'll be competing then in providing proper and impartial news.
As far as the shortwave is concerned, it's not 24 hours a day, though.
No, it won't be. It will be just 1 hour a day, starting around 13 hours to 14 hours, 1 hour.
The shortwave transmissions to South Asia will probably come from Tajikistan, starting on a test basis any day now and becoming firm towards the end of the month. Victor Gunatellica is on the line from Sri Lanka with the results of his investigations.
Victor, is there any news about the Tamil station that plans to broadcast to South Asia? I mean, has the frequency been decided on yet?
Well, there is information that they hope to have a test transmission from 13 hours to 14 hours UTC, and the frequency could be 12070 kilohertz. That's 12070 kilohertz. Well, the final frequency is not sure, but they want to test propagation, and it's likely that the frequency will anyhow be very close to 12070 kilohertz, and that's at the top end of the 25-meter band, Diana.
Victor, what's been happening in your part of the world recently? Radio Free Asia apparently has been making quite a few changes to their schedule.
Yes, Diana. Listeners to the Vietnamese service must be finding it quite a job to find the frequencies because the transmissions are so heavily jammed. Anyway, currently the Vietnamese service is carried from 14 hours to 15 hours on 11590, 11540, 9930, 9910, and 9455 kilohertz. And also another transmission to Vietnam in their mornings, that's 23:30 to midnight 30, and the frequencies are 13710, 11580, 11570, and in the 31-meter band, 9975 and 9920 kilohertz. All these frequencies are accompanied by jamming by the Vietnamese with their home service. Well, the other languages of Radio Free Asia, that's Mandarin, Tibetan, Korean, and Burmese, go unjammed. All Radio Free Asia's programming are preceded by an English station identification. There is still no indication as to where the transmitting sites are, Diana.
And what about the Voice of Tibet, Victor?
Well, the Voice of Tibet in the meantime seems to stick close to Radio Free Asia's Tibetan service frequencies. Their 30-minute Tibetan service is from 12:22 to 12:57 UTC, and they're also using 11,570 kilohertz, 11,570, which is just 5 kilohertz below Radio Free Asia's frequency of 11,575. And by the way, Tibetan from Radio Free Asia is from 13 hours to 14 hours on 11,575 and 11,590, which is just 5 kilohertz up and just a few minutes after the Voice of Tibet closes down.
Right, Victor, what else is new?
Well, still in Asia, an interesting station which is being reported by Sunil Deep in India. Now, these are very interesting stations, Diana. That's the Voice of Mongolia, and they're using 9720 kilohertz. That's 9720 kilohertz. And English to Asia, 15 hours to 15:30 UTC. Now, this frequency was impossible to be received from the Voice of Mongolia because the All Asia service of the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation was using the same frequency of 9720. Well, the All Asia service of the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation moved its frequency to 9730. That's moved 10 kilohertz up. So now the All Asia service is from 12:30 to 16 hours UTC on 9730, and the Voice of Mongolia is in the clear 15 hours to 15:30 on 9720 kilohertz.
Thanks there to Victor Gunatilaka on the line from Colombo.
And now, what on earth is next?
Media Network with CD music, Dolby noise reduction, ultra low noise tape, and a few bangs from the ionosphere.
Now to Mike Bird in Melbourne, Australia with the propagation review. Mike, what's it been like for the last 7 days?
Diana, the sun was very quiet and the geomagnetic field was also quiet. The solar flux ranged between 72 and 74. The average works out to 72.2, which equals an effective sunspot number of 8, and that is up 1 point on the previous week's level. The geomagnetic field disturbance indicator, the estimated planetary A index, ranged between 7 and 3, which represents quiet conditions.
And what about between now and next Thursday, May the 22nd?
IPS Radio and Space Services expect solar activity will continue to be low. The geomagnetic field should be active today, then quiet to unsettled on Friday and Saturday, but more active conditions are expected for Sunday and Monday. Hopefully, quieter conditions will prevail from Tuesday. And before you go, Diana, the Australian government announced its budget last Tuesday. Radio Australia's transmission budget has been cut from $7 million to $2.5 million. Also, the Minister for Communications, Senator Richard Alston, has stated that Darwin is no longer required by Radio Australia, which begs the question, did he even ask them? Finally, Radio Australia's General Manager, Derek White, has announced his early retirement. He will leave the ABC on June the 13th.
Thanks, Mike, and that's all for now. Stay with Radio Netherlands throughout the coming week and join Jonathan and me in 7 days for more from the world of wireless.
In the meantime, on behalf of the team around the world and Roadshow Manager Essex on the phone,
have a pleasant weekend.
Copyright 1997.
With transmitters located in Germany, this is Shortwave Radio.
Shortwave Radio is completely run on a non-commercial basis. If you enjoy what you are hearing or listening to, please donate to the project. Please visit our website at shortwaveradio.de/donate. That's shortwaveradio.de/donate. Remember, shortwave radio broadcasting is not for free.
Your support. It's 2000 hours in the UK, 2100 hours in Central Europe.
From Feature Story News, I'm Simon Marks with the Week in Review, and the week ended with the financial markets and currency traders roundly rejecting efforts by the new British government to strengthen the country's economy.